If you switch on the telly, there is a good chance you are going to see this woman. She is a TV news reporter, she's an entrepreneur, she is a teacher, and she has built an online community of women of more than 30,000 people right across Australia. Doing a quick deep dive, let's look through her LinkedIn. She has been in the media for a decade with some of Australia's biggest commercial news networks. Her business is called Tea Society, which stands for There Is Enough Room, which actually has such a lovely meaning because it is all about communication and confidence without that scarcity mindset. Now, if we have a look through her socials, she pulls random people for a chat on the street. She talks about behind the scenes of working in the newsroom. She does have one of those cool news reporter voices as well, but she also talks a lot about communication in a way that is very easy to understand. Her personal Instagram bio, though, I feel like sums it all up. Not bossy, just a boss.
Get ready.
Oh my God, it's so good to see you.
I'm so ready for this chat.
All right, are we ready?
Go, okay.
I'm cordially invited.
You're cordially invited.
Well, you're cordially invited.
So good.
Everything. I got to exactly.
You're cordially invited.
Cordially invited.
You are cordially invited.
I live here now.
I'm Ashleigh and this is Cordially Invited. Okay, that was weird talking about myself in third person, but hello, I'm so glad that you've made it here. I feel like it's really funny because people see TV journalists and they just think that they are the most naturally charismatic, outgoing, amazing, confident people, like naturally, that it just comes to them, that they're sort of like born with it. But what's really funny is when you see behind the scenes and when you see like the chaos of the day and how people are actually feeling and going about their day, you realise that they don't have it all together. You know, like most of the time, you see the polished version of the whole day on the screen for a minute 30 at the end of the day, 5 or 6 p.m, but you don't see the ups and downs throughout the day. You don't see the build-up of having to like get yourself ready to like knock on people's doors and ask them a question, like walk down the street and like grab someone for a chat and be like, can you talk about this topic? You know, it can actually be quite difficult. And I feel like the secret to being confident or having like that confident persona on camera at the end of the day is that there are actually skills and strategies behind every step of the day of the journey. And that's what I really want to talk to you about because I find it interesting that people have such a perception of journalists, they have such a perception of me, and you know, it's not a secret. It's not something that I was born with. Confidence is actually little bits and pieces that I implement throughout the day, that I make choices about. It's like skills, it's strategies, it's things that I use and that I think that everyone can use, and that's why I really find this such an important topic to talk about. So people, when they think about the word confidence, I think that for a lot of people, it's easy to see the loudest person in the room, the most dominant in the conversation, being the confident one. But I feel like that's actually not true. And I think that also being confident doesn't mean that that you have it all together and that you're never making mistakes and that you know all the answers. It's sort of like, for me, I feel like confidence is sort of having that inner critic in your mind, that inner voice, that inner dialogue that can sometimes be so nasty and so mean and like tear you down and tell you all of the things that you're bad at, all the things that you're wrong at, but not letting that control you in the moment and in life. Being able to control that, being able to sort of tame that inner critic, for me, is confidence. Being able to stand tall and be resilient in the face of challenges and setbacks and mistakes and actually being able to bounce back. For me, that's confidence. And I think that the most surprising thing for people about confidence is that it actually really is skills and strategies. Like, I'm going to take you through a couple of them that are so, like, when you think about it, it's like, duh, of course, but when you actually know what it means, how to implement it, how to like use it to your advantage, that's when the game changes. And that's why I say that confidence is actually quiet, because you don't have to be the loudest person in the room to use these skills. You can actually use these to your advantage in yourself. Okay, so I want to take you behind the scenes on one of my most crazy stories that I've had to cover as a journalist this year. It wasn't like a crazy story, it was just a crazy time. So it was back in January and it was the Australian Open. I wasn't really covering the Australian Open at the time, and so I sort of knew what was happening, but I sort of also didn't know what was happening in the tennis. It was close to the end of the competition, and I had already done my story for the day. It was like, our news goes to air at 5, and it was like 4 o'clock, 4:10-ish, okay, and we're watching it on the TV, and Novak Djokovic pulls out. He pulls out, he retires, and we're all like, oh my God, what is happening? Like, none of us know, we're watching the TV as it's happening live. And so we're like, oh my gosh, this is the biggest story of the day. So we're all looking around the newsroom being like, okay, who can go and cover this? And I'm sitting there like, I've already finished my story. And so then everyone like, Ashleigh, you can go and cover this story. It's going to be a live cross. And I'm like, oh my God, okay, let's get ready, let's go. Okay, so it's like 4:10, so there's 50 minutes before I go on air. He's just retired, and I don't really know anything other than that. I jump in an Uber. What's really funny, people, like, I don't know how people assume that we get to stories, but I get in an Uber and I'm driving there. I'm trying to find out all of the information that I can about it. I am writing on my phone, like trying to write notes, like what am I actually going to talk about in 50 minutes time? And then the Uber driver is trying to chat with me too, because he's like, oh, you're a journalist, like how cool, like what's it like? And I'm like, bro, I'm so sorry, like I would love to talk, but I am like freaking out right now. Like I'm stressed. My brain was like so fuzzy. I was just, like even talking about it now, my heart rate goes up and I'm just like, oh. And so I actually had the window down and I had my head out the window for a minute, like trying to like get back in my body and like chill, because I knew that, the best thing about live breaking news is that it doesn't have to be perfect, because like it's happening right now and people actually prefer it when it's happening right now and not like super polished. Anyway, I get there 4:30, let's say, around 4:30. I meet up with my cameraman. He's getting all of the gear out of the car. I'm still trying to figure out what to say and what's happened, because he is now holding a press conference talking about what is happening, but I can't listen to it because I'm not there. I'm out the front of Melbourne Park getting ready. So I've got a producer back in the newsroom who is listening, who is taking notes, who is trying to like tell me what's going on, like help shape my live cross, because honestly, I am like, I don't even know what to say. Then I'm starting to get ready. My cameraman has set up. I've got like my microphone. I've got my notes, whatever notes I have. I can't remember. Like, I don't feel like it was that many. I've got my earpiece connecting me to the newsroom. And it's also like, we're at Melbourne Park. We're out the front of Melbourne Park. So there are people coming out of the tennis. They see me. They want to come say hi. They want to chat. And I'm like, I would love to chat, but I'm on air in like 3 minutes and I'm trying to I've got my game face on, but it is stressful. It is so stressful because there's more information coming in all the time. And I'm just like, I just need this to go right. Of course, I'm a perfectionist. I want it to be great. I want it to be perfect. I want the energy to be there. I want to be correct, of course, but I'm freaking out a little bit. In my mind, I'm like, I'm going to say, actually, the thing that was freaking me out the most was everyone's names, because the tennis players have hard to pronounce names. And I'm like, that's the one thing I don't want to get wrong, because I don't want to sound like I don't know what I'm talking about. But the easiest thing, I guess, with a breaking live cross like that is that we don't know all the details. And so I'm just giving you what I know right this second, and then giving sort of background on who Novak is, why it's important, like what this sort of means for the tournament, I guess. But there were a few key names in there, and that was making me really nervous. So inside my brain, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, don't stuff it up. You're going to sound stupid. You're going to sound like you don't know what you're talking about. You're really nervous. I'm starting to get nervous, like I'm starting to shake. I still do get nervous before live crosses, especially breaking news crosses. And so in my mind is whirling. I'm in fight or flight, so it's kind of fuzzy. My brain cells aren't firing properly. There's people around me. The person in my ear is telling me that you're on air in 30 seconds. I'm like, okay, like let's just get this done. Oh my gosh. And so I'm off the top of the bulletin. So we hear the opening credits roll, and then it goes, okay, and we begin tonight with some breaking news at the Australian Open. Ashleigh is there live. Ashleigh, tell us, what can you tell us? I can't remember exactly what the throw was, but thank goodness I started talking. I said the correct words, and that first one went off quite well. I had quite a lot of it written, and so I did talk to camera, but it is mostly memory. but I did have some notes that I definitely referred to. I was heavy on the notes that day because I was nervous. I got everyone's name right, but what was funny was I then had to cross to Brisbane like 2 minutes afterwards, and I got something wrong. I said, actually no, it was to Sydney 2 minutes after. I said here at Lod Raver Arena. And as soon as it came out of my mouth, I was like, it's Rod Laver. But within that moment, I said Lod Raver Arena, Rod Laver Arena. And then I kept going. So then the rest of that was a blur because I can't remember. I was so freaked out at the fact that I like made a mistake on national television. I was like, but I got everyone's name right, so that's fine. Then I did a cross like 40 minutes later to Brisbane, and then I recorded a look live for Perth. So it was a hectic, I don't even know, like 2 hours. It was absolutely crazy. And the thing with that, you know, I know that not everyone is going to be in that situation where you do a live cross and the pressure is on like that and you're going beamed live across the country, and sometimes even like internationally news takes it as well. Not everyone's in that situation, but everyone has been in a situation where the pressure is on, the stakes are high, you want to be a perfectionist, you want to get it right, you don't want to look stupid. So there were a key few things that I did to really make myself and others believe that I was confident and knew what I was talking about, even though I'd got the information 5 seconds ago and I wasn't a tennis expert. That was my body language. I had really strong planted feet. You couldn't see it on the camera, but for me, that is really important because that is grounding myself and that is making myself feel like I feel comfortable in this position. I had my shoulders back and wide. I was using hand gestures because that is a visual cue to show that I know what I'm talking about. It also is like a bit more visually interesting because otherwise people get bored if you're like standing like this with no hand movement. It's kind of boring. So I was using my hands a lot. I made sure that I used eye contact. Okay, eye contact not only happens like with someone that you're talking to, it can also be down the barrel of the camera. That is very trustworthy. So people are going to trust what I'm talking about. If I'm going like this and talking, everyone's like, oh, okay, like she doesn't know what she's talking about. Whereas if I'm looking down the camera, that is very confident body language. Okay, that body language is telling the other person that I know what I'm talking about, but that is also telling me that I know what I'm talking about. Body language is a two-way street. So if other people are perceiving it, it is also reiterating to me in my brain that I feel confident, that I feel comfortable in this situation, and that's going to be how I start acting in that situation as well. Another thing that I do when I'm speaking and I want to come across as authoritative is lowering my voice and slowing down what I'm saying. That is one of the reasons why we have the reporter voice. That's why everyone loves it. That's why we all sound the same, because we want to be clear to understand, authoritative. We want it to be seamless so that like our voice is in the story, like the story is the story. So we don't want to take away by having a funky voice, you know. But that is one way that's really going to highlight your authority in that moment. So I slow down. I start speaking in a slightly deeper tone. This already is making you listen. This is a very powerful tool to use. But if you overuse it, it is null and void. So use it like a little sprinkling of salt. Okay. The last thing that I think is a very underrated way of showing and portraying confidence is making mistakes. It's actually making mistakes and doing something wrong, but being able to bounce back from it. Because I think that it makes you more human, it makes you more relatable, and seeing you actually be able to recover and come back from it shows that you really know what you're talking about, and it shows that you're cool, calm, collected. It gives you more rapport with the audience because, again, you sound more human, and it really builds your credibility in the eyes of the viewer, the audience, the person that you're speaking to. So the fact that I said Lod Raver and then kept it going and didn't dwell on that mistake, that is showing confidence. Because if I dwelled on that mistake and I was like, oh my God, sorry, okay, no, hang on, and I like stumbled and I felt back and blah, blah, that's what people are gonna remember. But no one actually remembered that I said, I didn't get in trouble for it, don't worry. Because I said it incorrectly, but fixed up my mistake straight away, didn't dwell on it, moved on, kept going. That is showing credibility to the audience. That is building my rapport. I'm human, but I know what I'm talking about. And I think that that is one of the biggest underrated ways of being confident and showing confidence. Okay, that is just like a little crash course, a little behind the scenes of what actually happens as a TV journalist. But I actually have a few little questions from people that I get asked all the time that I wanted to go through today. Hi Ash. For the moments when you're not feeling super confident or on top of it, how can you still get into that zone where you can still kill it? Networking, getting the presentation done or the meeting, how do you put yourself in the zone when you're not feeling it? Okay, I love this question. There are so many times, and I feel like you already know this by now, there are so many times where I'm not feeling confident or super good. I'm tired, I'm hangry, I'm angry, I'm hungry, I'm hormonal, like whatever it is. I think that having these little things up my sleeve ready to go means that I can show up confidently no matter what. First of all, you are going to check what you are saying to yourself internally. What's your internal dialogue? What is your inner critic saying? Because that is going to influence how you are able to battle and win in the long run. So that's like my first little thing, but I feel like everyone talks about that. So I just want to we'll brush over that quickly. Next, I want you to think about taking a breath. Release the shoulders, relax the face, take a breath into the stomach. We're getting out of fight or flight mode so that we can actually think properly, because when we're in fight or flight mode, I know my brain's a fuzzy mess and I can't really think clearly. So when we are actually relaxing the body, that is going to mean that we can get in that zone to kill it no matter what is happening. So they're just sort of two quick things that you can do before stepping into a room where you have to kill it, where you have to actually be on and be confident when you're not feeling it. But these two little secrets that I'm about to share with you, I use all the time, and I don't know if I really want to share it with you, because then people are gonna know that I'm doing this because I'm not feeling great. But I feel like they're amazing and you should start using them too. Number one, if I am really not feeling it and my brain is really not firing and I can't be quick on my feet and I can't think, I am going to redirect to the other person as much as possible. That could mean asking questions, leading, clarifying, probing, hypothetical. I don't care what kind of questions. I'm going to be throwing back to the other person, the audience, the one person I'm talking, like whoever it is, I'm going to be throwing to them as much as possible, because that means that I'm going to get time to actually think and to formulate my next move. And when you're getting the other person speaking, that is going to make them feel like you're an amazing conversationalist, awesome person, but it also means that you're going to not have to do half the work by talking. You can just ask them questions. If I'm in a meeting or something, I'm going to sort of say what I need to say quickly and then throw to the audience to get them engaged and them talking. Not only is that going to make it way more fun in the meeting and less boring than hearing me talk the whole time, but it also means that it's like a load off my shoulders. So if I'm not feeling good, if my brain is not firing, I'm going to redirect as much as possible. Okay, again, when you are really, really not feeling it, I like to prepare as much as possible, because it means that I'm not going to have to be thinking quickly on my feet on the spot. I'm not put on the spot. I am cleverly thinking about different things that I can bring into conversation, open the conversation with. It's going to be like a fun fact, something that has been happening recently in my world, some sort of anecdote, something that you can open the conversation with or bring in when the conversation dulls down a little bit. Having that ready to go means that you're not having to think on your feet and act quickly. Your brain barely has to be there if you've already memorized something interesting to keep that conversation going. At the end of the day, confidence isn't about being confident all the time. It is about choosing those actions that make you feel and look confident in that moment. Okay, let's look at the next question. You love networking as much as I do. Whew, I am like a networking fiend. Okay, what's one common mistake you see people make at the events, and how can they avoid it? I actually have so many pet peeves, but I don't think we have enough time to go into them all. So I'm going to start with the start. Start at the start. My biggest pet peeve is when people can't introduce themselves, because that introduction is going to set up the rest of the conversation and the rest of the relationship that you build with that person that you are meeting at a networking event. If someone comes over to me, says, "Hi, I'm Sarah and I work in marketing," what am I going to do with that? I'll be like, cool, okay, like what kind of marketing? I, as the receiver, am going to have to work really hard to keep that conversation going and to get somewhere interesting. You already know the question of what do you do for a living is going to come up at a networking event. Like, of course that is going to come up. So let's prepare an answer that is going to make it easy for the other person to engage and to really find common ground. The answer is having a strong elevator pitch. And it is not hard to build. It is something that we can do right this second. Okay, so you are going to start with what you do for a living, of course, but I don't want you to use the buzzwords, the jargon. Like, I want you to tell me what you actually do. Because if you tell me that you're like a strategic manager in procurement, or like, I'm like, what do those words mean? Like, firstly, I actually do know what procurement means now because I've asked so many people, but like, I don't know what that means. What's a strategic manager? Like, who do you talk to? What are you managing? What are you strategic about? Like, tell me what you actually do that is very easy to understand for the other person. Next, after you explain what you do in very simple terms that is easy to understand, you are going to talk about the slightly wider context of what you do, why it's important, how you got there, some sort of interesting little bit about it. And lastly, if you get this far in the elevator pitch where they haven't already broken in with a question or talking, like, oh, but also you can get this far, I want you to then take it outside of work. Tell me a little fact about you outside of work. It doesn't have to be a fun fact. It can be a boring fact. It can be just something about you that makes you human. Like, my fun fact is that, like, I like red wine. I don't have a dog. Like, I like to go for a walk along the Yarra. Like, it doesn't have to be a groundbreaking fact, because I think that's what people get scared about. They're like, oh, I don't have anything interesting about me, or like, I'm not that blah, blah, blah. It doesn't have to be interesting, okay? So I'll give you my quick elevator pitch. It is, hi, I'm Ashleigh. I have an empowerment brand where I teach women about confidence and communication, but I actually am also a TV journalist, and I've been in the industry for about 10 years, reporting, producing for some of the biggest commercial networks in Australia. But actually in 2022, I quit my full-time job. I went traveling for the year. I went around South America, and I've got to say, Argentina is actually my favorite country. And I would love to live there. If it wasn't so far away and the flights weren't disgusting, I would live there because the food is good, the people are good, the wine is good. Okay, that is my like elevator pitch. That's like my standard elevator pitch. But the thing is, I don't normally get through the whole thing because people normally jump in to ask a question before I get to that point. But I have made it really easy for the other person to jump in with some sort of conversation that engages them. Women's empowerment, confidence, communication, TV journalism, commercial networks. People have so much to say about commercial networks. Traveling, South America, Argentina, wine, food. I have like packed those 3 sentences full of information that people can now take and pick what's interesting for them and keep the conversation going. I'm being a generous conversationalist. I'm making it as easy as possible for that person to want to continue the conversation and to actually remember who I am. Because if you say, hi, I'm Sarah and I work in marketing, I'm so sorry, but I have already switched off and I've forgotten who you are. Like, I am sorry, but you have the chance to make yourself memorable. Take that chance. Put in the preparation, make that elevator pitch. And the elevator pitch can like change all the time depending on who I'm speaking to, what lights people's eyes up. Like if I have something really interesting that I've been working on recently, like I'll weave that in, you know, like, but that's like the base. That's my go-to. I can whip that out whenever, but I'm going to change it depending on who I'm speaking to. Okay, this is the last question. I recently came across your VAX method you spoke about at one of your sessions, and I loved how it enhances your conversations, especially since I'm a chatty chatty person and enjoy storytelling. However, I often wonder, how can I strike the right balance between sharing too much and too little? How do I know when I'm getting carried away? Okay, I'm going to give you a quick rundown on what VAX actually is so that we're all on the same page. VAX is an NLP storytelling method that I like to talk about to really make sure that what you're saying and your stories, and even if it's like dry subject matter, is really engaging and memorable. It stands for visual, auditory, kinesthetic, and sensory, or smell. It is a way of weaving in details that can sort of be seemingly meaningless, but they actually make such a big difference in making your story come to life and make it really engaging, again, especially if it's like dry subject matter. Okay, so now that we've done the crash course on what VAX is, how do you know when you're giving too much detail, not enough detail, like how do you strike the right balance? So I am really going to be focusing on the other person's body language and non-verbal communication and cues, because they are the biggest giveaways. People aren't going to, well, hopefully, aren't going to be like, I'm bored of this conversation, I'm out. But their body will secretly tell you when they've become disengaged. If they are crossing their arms, if they are leaning out of the conversation, if they start looking around the room, if they start blank staring at you, if they're not nodding anymore, if they've started, like, you can see that they are receding within themselves, that means that they are disengaged. They are not really actively listening. You're pretty much boring them at this point. People are normally polite. Well, I kind of hope that they're polite and wouldn't say, you know, this is boring me, can we move on? But those non-verbal cues are going to give it away. So if I start seeing that in someone when I'm talking, I know that it's time to change it up. If they are really engaged, they're going to be leaning into the conversation. They're going to have their feet pointed towards you. They're going to be engaging in their eye contact with you. They might be smiling. They'll be nodding, definitely. They'll be asking questions and engaging. Those little things are really showing that they're invested in what you're saying and that they're actively listening. Now, if they aren't at that point and they're in the disengaged point, there are ways to sort of bring them back into the conversation. I'm going to be doing things like changing up the tempo of the conversation. I will start speaking faster. I will ask them a question. I will get out of that sort of lull, that rut of the conversation that we are in. I'm going to be smiling or nodding or looking into their eyes to try and re-engage them in the conversation. That is really going to make the conversation feel alive again and really interactive, because I know if someone is talking to me and it's boring as hell and I'm starting to like drift up, I'm not really listening anymore. So if they ask me a question, if they start leaning in and looking into my eyes, if they make a joke and laugh, I am like snapped out and I'm back in that conversation. And that's what you want to get to. You know, you don't really want to get to that point because you don't want them to be disengaged from the start. But if they do become disengaged, that's some ways to get them back. But in terms of striking the right balance between talking too much and giving too much detail and not giving enough, it's really a trial and error. I personally would rather undershare and give them sort of some key points of information to keep them interested, and then see what they ask, what they want to bring up again, what area they want to continue the conversation down, because then that means I'm not like wasting my breath and talking about something that they actually don't care about. So if I give them the key bits of information at the start, then they can pick up on the part that they like, and then you can launch into way more information. That's when you can sort of bring in the VAX method. That's when you can start giving all of the detail, because you know that they're sort of already interested in that part. These are just a few tiny adjustments that you can make to really be your most confident self in any moment. I think the biggest misconception around confidence, like to sort of wrap this all up, the biggest misconception is that people think that you were born with confidence and that it's like an innate quality or trait. But in actuality, it is skills, strategies, little tiny changes that you can make, that you can implement in your everyday. Like I've told you about my live cross. I've told you about making mistakes, how you get back from that, the little changes in my body language, the little words that I use, the little phrases, how I ask other people questions, like all of those things really help portray confidence to other people, but it is then solidifying in your own mind that you are a confident person as well. And the more that you do this, the easier it becomes to show up as that confident person every single time. But I have so much more to say on confidence. Honestly, I could yap about this all day long. And you won't get bored. You won't be looking around the room. I promise I'll be engaging. I will keep drawing you in. So if you want to hear more about confidence, or you want to hear more, I don't know, like just around confidence, communication, around me in the newsroom, whatever it is, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, 5 stars, write me a little message on whatever platform you're listening on, send me a message, send me a little red note with a question, whatever it is. I can't wait to see you again soon.